if I'm brutally honest, I did look at having my son adopted because his other half of DNA was not a very nice man. I didn't want my son to go through everything I went through in that fractious, in that upset. I just couldn't see it happening. You've got to figure out what works best for you. And I'm honest, if I think, actually, do you know what I've got to offer? Maybe you need, somebody more on a therapeutic level than myself. I'll be honest about that. I'm not going to sort of like put myself in a position where actually I'm not going to have the best impact. The reason I do this, I want to help affect change and impact. That's my biggest thing, whether that's an individual feeling more comfortable and happy at work, or whether that's an individual dealing with things going on at home that maybe they need a little bit more clarity and their own understanding and own resilience,
Hello and welcome to the Business Growth Show.
I'm John from Octopus Computers.
And I'm Adam from Active Internet Marketing.
This is the show where we sit down with business owners, founders and entrepreneurs from Stamford and the Greater Rutland area.
We discuss their journey, look at their wins and their challenges, and get practical advice that you can apply.
New episodes come out fortnightly, so if you want to stay up to date, drop us a follow or subscribe wherever you're listening.
Good morning, Lesley. I'd like you to just introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
Okay, so I'm Lesley, and I've just launched Renegade.
Excellent. And tell us a bit more about what you're doing and what your plans are.
Okay, so Renegade was predominantly because I really wanted to get into speaking and sharing my story of overcoming adversity and all sorts of things, predominantly for the younger generation, because I think it's something that we don't talk about with them enough. But equally, I wanted to share this with businesses. And I also do some training which is built in around that, which is on our mindset and how that impacts us. I think we do it unknowingly, but when we can unpack it and start doing it knowingly, we can have such a bigger impact on ourselves, our lives, and the people around us. And it's something that's just an absolute passion. And it's crazy me being sat down because I'm normally bouncing out of the chair. So if I get a little bit bouncy through this, I apologise because I just get so excited about the change and the impact that this has had, and I've seen it have on others. So
Brilliant.
That's why I got into it.
Before I start asking you about the change, I think a bit of background.
Okay.
Why adversity in particular? Why mindset? There must be some personal journey there.
Oh, yes, definitely. I am a whole EastEnders episode. Well, probably whole year's episode, grew up in a very unsettled background through lots of different abuse, through alcohol, all sorts, very fractured family here, there and everywhere, and my mum ended up having a brain hemorrhage and I had to live with family, and I left home at 16 more because I was an independent monkey and I wanted to do my own thing. And, that wasn't easy because I was at college as well as, working and stuff. And it was just, I think, sharing that journey and showing people that, I said the other day, if I was to be looked at in statistics, my upbringing would have put me on an estate somewhere or, that's how I would have been looked at. And that's not how it has to be. Just because you're in that circumstance, because you've been through that cycle, doesn't mean it has to continue. It can be stopped. And we do need to open people's minds as young as possible. Not that their parents don't love them, because I'm sure they do, but actually they don't. Some of what's happening might not be what's the best for them. And they can choose a different path. And it is a choice. I used the analogy the other day, it's giving back the keys to ourselves, right? And we've got the key and it's going, here, you've got it. Just unlock it now. I then fell into my own mum's pattern and ended up having a son. And the other half of DNA, unfortunately, wasn't very nice. Thankfully, he lives abroad now. And I fell into that pattern, and it was having my son that opened my eyes again and reminded me of who I really was and what I was capable of and achieving. And, there are certain things that I've done with my son, considering the circumstances with the other DNA, I've never said a bad word against him, regardless. Because at the end of the day, people are all capable of change. It's a choice. And who am I to deny that for my son and for him if at some point that happens? So, and I ask my son quite regularly, do you want to know? He at the moment doesn't, and that's okay. That's fine. But it's not my place to burden him with the weight of my past and our issues. That's his choice. And I think, helping people understand that that is a path, that is a choice. Just because we've heard other people do it differently doesn't mean we have to.
Yeah.
We can make a different choice.
So what made you make that choice then in that sense? Because everyone gets stuck in patterns.
Yes.
And it normally requires something quite shocking,
Yes.
perhaps having a son, to sort of force you to break out of it.
Well, I didn't know I was pregnant.
Okay.
So I found I was working in private care work. The lady I looked after passed away. I was looking for another job. And I thought, I'd lost a lot of weight because of what had gone on between me and his other half for DNA. And I'd started to put it back on. And I was looking for a job. And I was thinking, God, I went back to doing a bit of bar work. And I can't stand for so long. Went to the doctor, said, I've put this weight back on. Then, congratulations, you're 6 months pregnant.
Wow.
Shouldn't
6
laugh,
months.
That's
Right?
a lot. Yeah.
Right? And at the time, and we're talking like, I didn't know. And I was drinking quite a bit, dealing with what was going on. Right? So I'm in meltdown. I'm thinking, what have I done? All this. And if I'm brutally honest, I did look at having my son adopted because his other half of DNA was not a very nice man. I didn't want my son to go through everything I went through in that fractious, in that upset. I just couldn't see it happening. And because during this time, I'd also effectively made myself homeless because I'd got no job. I had to give up my flat. My sister thankfully took me in, but it was around the corner from this person. I was in a mess, an absolute mess. And I was having to fill out, I'd never had to get benefits or anything. There's all these forms. And I was like, I've never done this. Like, I've always had 3 jobs. What's all this about? And I remember sitting down with a social worker and her saying to me, because I got a list of demands of what I wanted the parents to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's got to have this. And she said, we can't guarantee all of that, Lesley. These are guarantees we can't give you. And I think at that point, it dawned on me that it was only me that could make that happen. And I didn't know how I was going to make it happen. I just knew I had to. And I was going to. And it didn't matter what. I'd face it and I'd do it. But I didn't say anything to anyone because I was like, my family were all putting a lot of pressure on me. And I was like, I've just got to figure this out for myself. It's got to be right for me and for him. Not that I knew it was a boy at that point, but I knew it had to be right for the child. And the day I actually went into labour was the day I was actually meant to meet the foster parents that were going to have him.
Right.
And again, the social worker had said to me, you can take him home, see how you're getting on. And if you still want to go forward, we can move forward. Because there was no reason for him to go into this process. It was down to me. But I think at that point, and I'm trying not to get emotional because it does sometimes make me emotional, but when I held him, and I remember thinking, that's it, let go. And I literally, the pain, the hurt, everything just fell away.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't care. It's all about him now. And that's it. Not me, not anyone else, but him. Of course, it's about me. I've got to look after me to be the best I can be for him. But I made certain decisions and I said, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. Not that I shared it with anybody. It was all in my own plan, me, what I was deciding to do. And so I lived with my sister, ended up getting a house, of which a house that I always said if I was going to have children, I would live in that environment. But it had to be away from the upset.
Yeah.
So we got somewhere that was away. And, you know, he's grown up. I mean, he's 20 now. He'll be 21 this year. I'm like, this is crazy. But he is like my best friend and we have a fantastic relationship. And yeah, we've been through a journey together, but yeah, I couldn't be prouder of him and myself because, you know, it would have been easier to be that person who said nothing but bad things. But I needed my son to not fall into the patterns that I'd seen or been through myself as best I could.
So you were very determined right from the beginning. And although you'd had a mixed upbringing, I guess you could say.
Oh,
Very political.
Yeah.
I've just tickled the surface there, but
you obviously had a clarity of what you felt a good upbringing looked like
Yes.
then, and that was what you were aiming for. You had a an ideal that you were trying to achieve, I guess.
Yeah. And that was just to be happy. I know that sounds really simple, but happy and feel safe.
Yeah.
I think growing up, there was such a small amount of happiness. I'm not going to say there wasn't any, there was a small amount. And being safe, you know, I felt so unsafe as a child. I was here, there and everywhere because my mum was in our hospital, you know, we had social workers involved, all that kind of stuff. It was so unsettled. And I was determined that any child that I had would never go through that. And I would do everything I could to create that, but also give them a rounded understanding of life and what life was and how, you know, it's an enjoyable thing. It doesn't have to be this big, scary, nasty thing that maybe I went through. So I don't overshare that side of my life with him because that's mine to work with, not him. He makes his own world.
Yeah.
You know?
And there was definite lessons then that you took from that you've put into a structure now that you want to help other people apply.
Yes,
Yeah.
Definitely. I think the important thing is to know it doesn't matter where you are, what you want to achieve, whatever success looks like to you, because it's different for everybody. It could be just having a happy home. It could just be having a nice job and going on holiday once a year, or whatever that looks like, or even to just have a house if you're homeless. It's all possible. It is all possible. And actually it starts in the mind and us realising we can unlock it. And
definitely.
we have that capability. We watch too much that tells us we're not this, we're not that. I was talking to somebody yesterday and my son he went to the grammar school, he got given this form that said, compared to where he was in society kind of thing, what grades do you think you should get? Like, these are the ones that we think you should get because of where you are socially almost.
Quite limiting.
Right.
Yeah.
And I refused to complete it. I said, no, take it back. I'm not signing it. I'm not putting a limit on what you think you can achieve. You can achieve whatever you want. And they tried to give him a detention for not having it. So he said, I faked your signature. But I rang them and I had to go. I said, don't you dare punish him. I am not limiting my son to what. And this goes right back to, you know, if we look at what society labels us as. I was a young single mum, right?
Yeah.
What's that label look like? Right.
You don't want to fall into a stereotype, I guess, of what expectations might be.
We shouldn't have stereotypes like that. Anybody's capable of everything. We should give them the keys back and say, now what do you want to do? Yeah, you're a single mum. It is what it is. Where are we going from here? What are your aspirations? Where do you see yourself? What do you want your child to achieve? You know, and that doesn't have to be, you know, living in a mansion. It could be just have a nice home and be happy. You know?
So
plenty of people who live in mansions that are unhappy.
Yeah,
So it's a lot to be said for just being happy.
And
Yeah.
exactly that, you know, success and achievements aren't all be all and end all, you know. And that's why I kind of went with Renegade, because I'm not sitting here saying, I've got this qualification, that qualification. I've got a qualification of life, my friend. Like, I have lived it, I have breathed it, I have shown it is possible.
So tell us a bit about Renegade then. How does it work? How do people engage with the programme?
Okay, so I have a website, I have some socials out there. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest marketing person in the world, but I have a lot of support and people there driving me. But yeah, just book a one-to-one, come and have a chat, see if working with me is right. I know I'm not right for everybody. There needs to be an army of people like me who are out there sharing this. So, you know, a one-to-one is really important. Do we work? Does my approach to helping you work? You know, do you think your team would respond to me? And I really don't think what's, again, really important here is that this isn't just going in and giving a nice talk or giving a nice training session. This is about the ongoing, right? I don't want to just go in and go, yay, and everyone feel great for a day or an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
I want that to continue.
And are you looking to target that at the education sector then, or at individuals who are facing challenges and want to change, or both? Or
So there's both.
Right.
Yeah. So I can go into businesses and education sectors. I've given a couple of talks at the Mental Health Awareness Day at Stanford College here.
Right.
I did a talk at the beginning of the year for a Ukrainian charity. But what I'm keen on is the ongoing. So some of the people from the Ukrainian charity have come on to a course that I'm running at the moment, which, to make it more accessible, because this course really should be built into your training, right? Because it's fundamental. But for them that don't have that built in, I'm doing 90-minute sessions. So it gives people an opportunity to do a little bit of work on themselves through the program over time. And I've done that so that individuals can come, business owners or people who are business owners who've got staff working for them but can't afford for them to be out for a whole day or a week. 90 minutes, that's in lunchtime or an evening. I've got another one starting on the 25th so that it's accessible. Because, I know this training that I do has predominantly been delivered within the car body repair industry. And it was actually developed by a man called Mike, who is absolutely wonderful. And he delivered it quite heavily and developed it over in America and delivered it to Navy SEALs and to sports people. But he kept saying, in my industry, da, 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 da. And they were like, what's your industry? And he's like, the car industry. He's like, well, shouldn't you be delivering it in the car industry? Yeah. So he's been doing it in the UK for about 9 years now, but he's looking to retire and wants to get it into other businesses. And when he met me, he was like, you've got it, Lesley. You understand this. Like, I don't even need to really train you, but I'll take you through it. I want you to take it to the masses. But working in the car industry, they're quite particular about having people out. If they're not fixing cars, they're not making money, right? So even though if they're not mentally in a great space, you could say that
tough, go do the job.
Yeah, right? Like their production might not be as good as if they were looking after their mental well-being a little bit better. What we find is a lot of companies pay lip service to mental health awareness and understanding mindset. They'll get somebody maybe like me, come and give a good talk. You've had your bit, right? But where's that ongoing? Where is that? Oh, you've got a helpline. No. Let's build this into what we do on a day-to-day basis. So this program's available. And individuals can come along and book onto the open courses as well. I'd love to do more in person. I think you get more of the energy, like I sat here talking today. It's a bit more challenging online, I feel.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
What can people expect to get out of the course on the individual level? We'll talk about the business separately, but what do they benefit from it? What do they gain?
So, again, the keys back to themselves, right? Might be that there's something that they're not quite able to work through, and understanding how the mind works. And just some of the little tips and tricks that I give to people, a really simple one that I tell everybody is, okay, so get up in the morning like, I've got to go to work. I've got to take the kids to school. I've got to go to the gym. Now let's rephrase that. I get to go to the gym. I get to take the kids to school. How many people are unable to, for whatever reason, do they not get the opportunity to take their children to school, right? And let's think about it in that way. I get to do this. And doesn't it feel better when you say I get to? Like, it's like a little burst of energy into you because it feels different. You sit different, you stand different.
I think the language you tell yourself is very important.
You've got to be a big cheerleader, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you listening to?
Adam, mostly.
Yeah, like you.
You're so lucky. No, he's a wise man. No, so it's really important. I mean, I distance myself quite heavily, like from people who are quite heavy in energy in terms of their language. And everyone's capable of change. And this is part of my training. Everyone's capable of it. It's a choice. Then people we go, well, they're fixed mindset. They're fixed. That's a choice by them. And that's okay. Like, if you want to be that way, I'm not here to try and convince you any other way. But for those that think, actually, what else could I do? How can I get through this? Then let's have a conversation. You know, I'm not here to try and convince people who really don't want to change, but just know that you are capable. You can learn a different language at any age, right? Like,
I guess for a lot of people, taking the first step is probably the hardest part. So once they've initiated some contact with you, then they're on the journey, aren't they?
Yeah. And then we take it from there. What's best for them? Nothing. I'm a big believer that one thing, one shoe fits everybody. You've got to figure out what works best for you. And I'm honest. If I think, actually, do you know what I've got to offer? Maybe you need, somebody more on a therapeutic level than myself. I'll be honest about that. I'm not going to sort of like put myself in a position where actually I'm not going to have the best impact. The reason I do this, I want to help affect change and impact. That's my biggest thing, whether that's an individual feeling more comfortable and happy at work, or whether that's an individual dealing with things going on at home that maybe they need a little bit more clarity and their own understanding and own resilience, you know?
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. Please remember to like, give us a rating, give us a follow and subscribe wherever you're listening if you're enjoying the show.
With the business side then, has there been employers so far that are pretty keen to invest in this area to help people, or is there a barrier with people coming forward in a work environment, or how have you found that?
So I think it's challenging. I think because it's still kind of classed as the fluffy, right? Like, although there's a lot about mental health awareness, what a lot of employers I think you'll find do is give them, you know, some kind of, here's a number to call if there's a problem with your mindset, right?
Yeah.
Or your mental well-being or your unhappiness, rather than actually engaging with their staff and saying, okay, let's talk about this. Because one idea that I would love to work more with businesses on is creating it so that if I was to go and give a talk and then maybe some training, that actually with joint with the HR, and I've got an idea for an app on this, but it's under construction, let's put it that way, is that there's accountability and ongoing learning together. So you can grow together within the business. You don't necessarily need me all the time, right? Okay, that's a big investment. But as a business, you can actually be more proactive, more in touch with your staff rather than just going, here, go call a number, right? Then how are you helping your staff? How are you really engaging with them to overcome whatever that issue is? It doesn't have to be massively time intensive, but if you can help them work on their mindset and their resilience so that they feel stronger to deal with maybe what's going on at home, then maybe you'll have a better employee when they come in, right?
And you're tying that back to directly to improvements in the role, are you? And things that can make a difference there. Yeah,
definitely. And people, you see more of an impact, more productivity. And also business owners, if your mindset isn't fully invested in what you're doing, it trickles down. I've always, since becoming a parent, I realise what business is now. It's parenting, right? You have to be the example.
Yeah.
Right? So if your mindset isn't quite right, you'll see that trickle through your business.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's important for them to look after themselves just as much as your employees.
Definitely.
And if you've got a clear vision of your future and for the business, and you are communicating in a way with your employees that, you know, engages them, you're going to create entrepreneurs and not entrepreneurs, right? People who want to be in that business, who want to help, you know, you push forward because they see your vision, they're bought into your vision, right? And that's what we want. We want people who are excited to be at work. Okay, you're going to get them that are happy to come and do a 9 to 5, and that's okay. We need them people.
Yeah.
But you still need to make sure that they're okay, right?
I mean, we speak to a lot of small and medium-sized business owners in this environment and outside of it, and a lot of them do have some sort of catalyst of something perhaps traumatic that has spurred them to
Not
set
quite
up
your
a
level.
business.
But yeah,
you know,
but there is that. There's normally people don't, I believe, start a business to be an asshole.
No.
Right? We normally, because we don't want to be the bad boss, we want to do it a certain way, but then the job gets in the way and you start having to do those things.
Yeah. And I think we can tie this back to, I work with the Lies Porter's theory, and that's talking about motives and what drives us and looking at language that we use. And you say, you know, you don't set out to be an arsehole. Nobody does, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes that miscommunication of language or realizing that you are in conflict, not necessarily with a person, but with something else, and it comes out at the wrong time, at the wrong person, because you're in conflict and your staff or team member hasn't recognized that you're in conflict, right? So we need to understand that as well, how we change from when we're in a good state to when we're in conflict state, because that's where that rub can come, right?
Yeah.
That's where that misunderstanding can come and create bigger problems. So if we can understand each other's language as well, so is that person, you know, predominantly dominated by people? You know, they talk about the staff all the time. They talk about how's this going to affect so and so and so and so. Or is this the person who's like, right, we just need to get the numbers, right? And in the Lies Porter's theory, nobody's one thing. You're always a mixture. It's just you're higher in certain levels than others.
Yeah.
I mean, most people will know DISC, and, you know, it's not a million miles from that, but it's a different perspective to look at it. And so when you're talking with teams, it's important to bring that element in about what it looks like on a good day and what it looks like on a bad day. What do you need from us? You need to leave us, or do you need us to interact with you? What do you need?
Do you think most businesses value that, or is there still a lot of, like you said, it's the fluffy piece? Where do you reckon it sits sort of as a...
I think it's becoming, DISC is so well,
it's everywhere.
advertised, if you like. Total SDI was not a nice Porsche series, wasn't advertised as heavily. But again, I do sometimes think it's a box ticking. I don't think they build it into their business model. I think there are some out there doing it really well, and I hope that they come and talk to you and shout about it, because that might encourage others, because I see the improvement it can make. I mean, when I was working with this tool, and I always remember this, and it was about the word forceful. Okay, so how does that make you feel? So we do a portrait of strengths, and my team members wanted forceful towards the top. And I saw forceful as, if you can imagine my upbringing, what forceful might mean to me, right?
Hostile,
all that kind of stuff. But then if you covered up the word forceful and looked at what it said, which was act with power and drive, whole different way of looking at it, right? And then I became comfortable. I was like, yeah, as long as we cross the word out, I can deal with the rest, like that, acting with power and drive to get to where we need to be, to achieve what we need to be, then yeah, I'm good with that. And I think that's, when we start to understand that about each other, we can have better communications, better relationships, and we can support each other and get less of that kind of clash sometimes, and less time around the water cooler, everyone complaining and moaning, and because we understand. And I remember when I was working with that tool, there was an NHS team. I was on the phone to the lady, and she rang me back, and she said, I've had a lady in tears. I was like, oh my goodness, what happened? She said, well, the lady was about to leave, and it wasn't until that they'd been through this training that they all sat in one area and she sat in a completely different, and there was such a clash and a misunderstanding. And then they started to understand her and said, oh my God, we've been doing this to you, we're so sorry. They didn't realise. They just didn't know.
They thought they just didn't get on, right?
Yeah, that was it. And as soon as they started to understand it, to the point when they did the portrait at the end, they started to take over again. And she sat back. And they went, oh, no, sorry, we're doing it again, aren't we? Come in, give us your opinion, tell us what you think, right? And that's the impact. It's them sorts of things that when you see that, I delivered it for a very small company, media company, not far from here, when I first started delivering it. And I had one director brought me, she was really excited. The other director turned up a little bit hungover, wasn't so keen on it. And it was so funny. But by the first tea break, he was asking me lots of questions. Because he'd been wearing a mask to work. His team didn't really understand him. They thought he was a bit of an enigma, right?
A bit aloof, a bit distant.
Yeah. But actually, he was a real people person. But he thought he had to act a certain way in the workplace.
Because that's what bosses do, is
right?
that?
Yeah. So he was going home really shattered and tired at the end of the day because he was being somebody that's not natural to himself. Yeah. And I think we're all guilty of that at times. And the mask can help in certain situations. But if you're doing that all day, every day, tiring.
Draining, I imagine, yeah.
Really tiring. And actually, your team appreciate you being more real with them. You can have a better relationship. And yeah, so that day ended up going on much longer than it should have done because he was so engaged, even with his hangover, and it was great. And I love them aha moments when people see it rather than think, oh, this is just a fluffy, fun day, and actually see the changes that can happen.
So you'll tailor your offering quite a lot depending on the circumstance then, whether you need help for a week or a month or a day or whatever, time frame.
It's what the client needs to achieve. What are you looking to achieve? And let's do that together, right? And we'll build that out together to make it look the best it can to achieve the goals you're trying to achieve. And we'll assess it all the way through. I don't think you can just go, right, that's it, it's done. It's like, is that working? Do we need to tweak it? How are things going? There's conversations to be had. And I think we miss a trick if we think we could just put, there you go, there's a blueprint, off you pop. It doesn't always work that well. And I think that conversation, that human approach is really important.
Because you can set specific objectives and achieve those and then review it further after that. Yeah.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Is it working for them? Do we need to put something in that helps support them further in this, right? I don't like delivering training and then unplugging and going away. I like to come back and like, how's that gone? How did you find that? What did you understand it? Are you still implementing it? So I'll come back and and if they need more explanation or a quick review. Let's do it.
That's because change isn't instant, right? It requires iterative work.
And that's why I'm really keen on that kind of ongoing, not just giving a talk. It is about what are we going to do to carry this forward? What are we going to do next? Okay, to make change. If you really want to, like I made that decision, if you're making that decision, and I mean wholeheartedly making that decision, let's make it happen. Let's go. Let's see what we can build to help you feel stronger, more resilient, to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve.
And just going back to something you said earlier, which I thought we should probably explain. We use the term entrepreneur a lot on this podcast, naturally.
Yeah.
You said make people into intrapreneurs.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
So that's somebody who's invested in your business, who wants to help and see the best in your business and help it grow and be like, right, I've got this idea, I've got that idea. Can we do this? Can we do that? And I think I was one of them when I was employed, but I was constantly, you're just doing that.
Stay in your pigeonholes.
Yeah, right? You do that. Don't, no. I did work with one manager who he actually headhunted me after we ended up, the business got sold that we worked for. He headhunted me to go and work for a training centre. And he just let me go. He was like, you go do it, And I always remember us, we went out for dinner with people we used to work with and him saying to them, I knew you could do the job, Lesley, I just didn't know how good you could do it. Right? Like he was like blown away because we had to look after a training centre that went through 3 different parent companies, and I held it up and I put processes in place and got the team moving and, secured and worked alongside National Grid and Anglian Water on several big training projects and managed their training for them. And, I think maybe that was where my love for learning and educating came in again. Just being in that education environment, because then I went to work at Stanford College doing recruitment and, and then working with a total SDI and then set up on my own 10 years ago.
It must be quite fulfilling for you when you see the results and how you've helped people change and get more to where they want to be.
Oh, yeah. It's the most fulfilling thing in the world. It's handing people the keys back to themselves and saying, this is you now. You can do this. Don't let anybody else tell you not to. You've got to give it a go. Be true to who you are, not what society says. And when you see their eyes light up and you see them standing that bit taller and feeling that, saying all the good stuff, being their own best friend, not relying on others and thinking, you know what, I've got this. Because we all do. Everyone's got it in them. We just aren't told about it.
Brilliant. And how do people get in touch with you then? You mentioned you've got the website and that kind of outlines everything that you've taken us through this morning, does it?
Yes, yeah. It tells you about the speaking, online courses. There's more to come. As I say, me and my marketing, I'm not always the best, but I'm much better in person, as you can tell. So yeah, there's the Facebook, which is Renegade as well, LinkedIn, Lesley Hughes, I'm on there. So, everyone can come along and see the journey, because I have started using it again now. Not all, like I say, marketing has not always been my strong point. I feel like the best kept secret somehow.
No, I know the feeling.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Hopefully people will get in touch and get something out of it.
It'd be great. It's been great talking to you guys.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. That wraps up another episode of the Business Growth Show. Thanks for joining us.
We hope it gave you some ideas or inspiration that you can take away and use in your own business.
Don't forget to drop us a like, a follow and a rating, and hopefully we'll see you soon for the next episode.